Qualifying begins. 15 minutes to set a time. Now watching JT Tommy. The gap is stretching out for Brian Hall. Now watching Daniel Kirby. On board with Tom Nacella. On board with Daryl Kruger. Ten minutes remaining. P10, Daryl Kruger, keeping it clean. Trackside view. Frank Radosti right behind Daryl Kruger now. Remarkably consistent from Frank Radosti. Frank Radosti improves in Sector 1. Now watching Matthew Overton.
P3 for Matthew Overton in PRO with a 110.820. That's 2.32 behind Daniel Kirby. Fastest in AM, Norm Graf, 111.503. Now watching Norm Graf. On board with Gil Lalonde. Qualifying begins 15 minutes to set a time. P2 for Daryl Kruger in AM with a 112.296. That's 0.79 behind Norm Graf. P3 for Brian Hall in PRO with a 110.640. That's 2.15 behind Daniel Kirby. Halfway point, 8 minutes remaining. On board with Carl Struhal. On board with Daniel Kirby. Trackside view. Now watching JT Tommy. P2 JT Tommy keeping it clean. Now watching Micah Locke. P3 Micah Locke, keeping it clean. P3 for Tom Nacella in AM with a 111.907. That's 0.78 behind Norm Graf. On board with Carl Struhal. P7 Carl Struhal, keeping it clean. Trackside view. P11 Frank Radosti, keeping it clean. Five minutes remaining. Now watching Daniel Kirby. P1 Daniel Kirby, keeping it clean. You could set your watch. Now watching Matthew Overton. P2 for Frank Radosti in AM with a 111.251. That's 0.52 behind Norm Graf. Matthew Overton, now 8 laps done. Now watching Karl Struhal. Karl Struhal, now 10 laps done. On board with Frank Radosti. Trackside view. Remarkably consistent from Brian Hall. P5 Brian Hall, keeping it clean. Two minutes remaining. Now watching Daniel Kirby. Karl Struhal into P2 in AM, 111.107. That's 0.38 behind Norm Graf. Now watching Gilles Lalonde. P10 Gilles Lalonde, keeping it clean. One minute remaining. On board with Norm Graf. You could set your watch by Norm Graf's lap times. That's Norm Graf's best sector 3 of the session. Trackside view. You could set your watch by JT Tammy's lap times. JT Tommy now 12 laps done. Personal best in Sector 2 for JT Tommy. Qualifying is over, waiting for any flying laps to be counted before the final grid.
The exact same time.
One's still on the track.
Damn.
Here we are. Well done. Some great laps out there. The expected gang at the top, Daniel getting into the 107s, and then JT and Mika splitting it down to the thousandths of a second, 108, 846, both of them. Nicely done. I don't think they could have arranged that better if they tried. And then for the AM side, we got Norm Graff at taking the pole there, and then Carl and Frank just behind him, pushing him hard. It's going to be an interesting race. So great, guys. We've got 10 minutes to cycle around and remember what a heavy car feels like and get ready for the start of the race.
Here are the qualifying results. Now for PRO, Daniel Kirby takes pole with 17.984, JT Tommy second, Michael Lock third. In AM, Norm Graff on pole with 110.726, Carl Struhal and Frank Radosti behind. On board with Daniel Kirby. Trackside view. Michael Lock is getting into a rhythm now.
Nice save.
Thank you.
Michael Lock has found some pace in the last few laps. Michael Lock is closing in, 40.0 seconds in the last 10 laps. Now watching JT Tammy. P2 for JT Tammy and PRO with a 1:11.795. P2 JT Tammy keeping it clean. P2 JT Tammy keeping it clean. Now watching Carl Struhl. Oh, Gilles Lalonde is in trouble in PRO. Here's the replay.
I had a wall grab.
Sounds like you're getting way too close to a
We're
wall.
back with Carl Struhl in P2 in AM.
Before last corner, the right-hander. Before the left-hander last corner.
5 minutes remaining.
On the right side. So if you spin the before last and you hit the
P7
wall
Carl
on
Struhl
the
keeping it
inside on
clean.
the right, you get hooked to it. Your wheel goes through and you have to drive to the end
Carl
of it
Struhl
to,
fastest in
pop
AM,
out.
1:17.497. P3 Carl Struhl keeping it clean. Carl Struhl has found some pace in the last few laps.
Just a reminder that next week's race is going to be at Long Beach and starts off our 3 weeks of Long Beach. We've got the IndyCars followed by the Super Trofeos, and then
Fastest
we're
in
at
AM,
the
Darrell Kruger,
VMSC. So
1:15.940.
lots to look forward to there.
Now watching Darrell
And also, for those of you who have something that you don't have anything for on a
Carl
Tuesday night,
Struhl fastest
don't
in
forget
AM,
that Carl and the NRL will be
1:15.152.
running the CART 1985 series with Long Beach as well.
Woohoo, Long Beach.
P4 Darrell Kruger keeping it
So
clean.
just when you didn't think you could have enough of Long Beach, why are you missing a tire? Oh, there
3
it is.
cars nose to tail.
The longest beach. Four races at Long Beach. Lots of variety.
Now watching Daniel Kirby. On board with Darrell Kruger.
As one does. In his very spiffy HRC livery.
Yeah, that he stole.
P4 Daryl Kruger.
Appropriated, I
clean.
think, is a much more socially acceptable terminology for that.
Acquired.
I don't think HRC was using it.
Yet.
Yeah.
P2 for Michael Lock in
there's,
PRO with a
I saw it, but I
111.018.
didn't
That's
download it, didn't check
0.93
the car.
behind
I have
Daniel
to pull the
Kirby.
car out of there, but there's a full paint series for all the cars.
Yeah, didn't Alec King do that?
2 minutes remaining.
2022 or 2023.
Yeah, I think that was Alec.
Yeah, I think so.
P5 Daryl Kruger keeping it clean.
Green is the color this year. Oh boy. It's like green cars this year, or cars with green in it.
Hey, I made my Tic Tacs orange.
Well, I do appreciate everyone went colorful, just like IndyCar has, with really bold colors.
They're always fun to watch. Especially back
Yeah,
in the
they're-
80s.
Even today, they're way more fun than the F1.
Yeah, F1's gone really drab. It's very disappointing.
P5
No,
Daryl
I don't
Kruger
think so.
keeping
Right
it
now,
clean.
it's like mini passing. It was
1 minute
fantastic.
remaining.
Oh, I mean, the series is great. I mean, the racing's great, but the liveries are kind of like,
Oh,
yeah,
On board
okay.
with Daniel Kirby.
Nothing too
oh,
exciting there, thank you.
wait. Yeah,
Yeah,
Haas.
and then,
Daniel Kirby
and then
has
in
spun
the
in
United
PRO.
States,
Let's see
they
that
put
again.
it on Apple Plus TV. Fuck that.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, for this weekend, the Haas has a fantastic paint job.
Same with Racing Bulls.
Yeah, getting a bit more exciting, which is good. Not
That's
just
I'm
We're back
okay
with
it
Daniel
on Apple
Kirby in
TV.
P1 in
I've been
PRO.
enjoying it. It's opened up so many more options.
Yeah, we
Yeah, I
only
got
have
that.
Apple TV.
P1 Daniel Kirby
I
keeping it
I
clean.
was renewing my Peacock, and for a few bucks more, I got to add Apple, so I get Supercross and F1. So
There you go.
$20 a month.
Plus, you get Ted Lasso and Shrinking.
They loaded
Yeah, and
up
they've
like
got
the
some good
Tic
shows.
Tacs. Oh my. There goes Dan. Off into oblivion. If they added
Okay.
the Duke videos, maybe.
That's the end of the sessions. Everybody get yourself sorted out. Make sure you've got your race setup loaded and everything ready to go. And I'll just let it tick over and we take off.
We'll see how this battle director update went.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see that.
Trackside view.
Why did Carl... Oh, do you guys start on pit road?
That wasn't in the plan, but okay.
I mean, that's kind of realistic.
Kind of nerve-wracking.
We're not going for realism here, JT.
Well, for the front half of the grid, it means that if they stall, they can just like roll down and restart. 25 seconds.
Who's gonna play grid chicken? Ooh. JT Tammy
Nobody.
wins.
Everybody, just wait for the RF2 instructions and we'll
And
be
here
good
we
to
have
go.
the grid for today's race. 12 cars across 2 classes, starting with PRO. Leading PRO, Daniel Kirby in the number 90 Dallara IR18. P2, JT Tammy in the number 201 Dallara IR18. P3, Michael Lock in the number 202 Dallara IR18. P4, Matthew Overton in the number 174
I like a
Dallara
safety car that lets Daniel
IR18.
know he's getting too close.
P5, Brian Hall
Yeah, like
in the
brake
number
check me.
201 Dallara IR18. P6, Gilles Lalonde in the number 203 Dallara IR18. Moving on to AM. Leading AM, Norm Graf in the number 1 Dallara IR18. P2, Carl Struhol in the
So I have
number
the speedo
42
written in
Dallara
here. Is he
IR18.
not?
P3, Frank Radosti in the number 403 Dallara IR18. P4, Tom Nazella in the number 28 Dallara IR18. P5, Daryl Kruger in the number 404 Dallara IR18. P6, James Bowders in the number 92 Dallara IR18.
Everybody have a great race out there.
Good luck.
And we're racing. Here's another look. Returning to the battle for P9 in AM, Tom Nazella versus Gilles Lalonde. P7, Carl Struhol, keeping it clean. Returning to the battle for P7 in AM, Frank Radosti versus Tom Nazella. Frank Radosti into P2 in AM, 117.041. That's 1.76 behind Norm Gruff. On board with Norm Gruff. Trackside view. P1 JT Tammy keeping it clean. Here's another look. Returning to the battle for P1 in PRO, JT on board with Daniel Kirby. This battle continues, neither giving up. This battle continues, neither giving up. Look at this PRO battle for P1. P2 Daniel Kirby, keeping it clean. This battle continues, neither giving up. Battle for P1 in AM. Frank Radosti has been faster, closing in on Micah Locke. Trackside view. Traffic cleared for Gilles Lalonde. James Bowders is building a cushion. This battle continues. Now, oh, here's Frank Radosti making a move on Micah Locke. Traffic cleared for Frank Radosti. The gap is stretching out for Micah Locke. Now, watching Norm Graf. Norm Graf has been faster, closing in on Brian Hall. This battle continues, neither giving up. This battle continues, neither giving up. Norm Graf is reeling in Brian Hall. This battle continues, neither giving up. Here's Michael Lock making a move on Frank Radosti. Michael Lock works through traffic. Michael Lock running 8.1 seconds behind the car ahead. We're back with Karl Struhel in P2. Oh, while we were elsewhere, Gilles Lalonde stopped on track on lap 7. We're back with Karl Struhel in P2. On board with Norm Graf. This battle continues, neither giving up. Norm Graf is reeling in Brian Hall. Trackside view. JT Tammy now 11 laps done. Michael Lock has ducked into the pits from P6. On board with Darrell Kruger. Darrell Kruger gets by Michael Lock. This battle continues, neither giving up. Trackside view. This battle continues, neither giving up. On board with Norm Graf. Remarkably consistent from Norm Graf. Norm Graf has cut the gap by 24.0 seconds. Trackside view. Gilles Lalonde works through traffic. Daryl Kruger is in trouble in AM. Here's the replay. Returning to the battle for P10 in on board with Michael Lock. Michael Lock clears the slower car. James Bowders is reeling in Michael Lock. P8 Michael Lock, keeping it clean. Brian Hall heading into pit lane. On board with Frank Radon. Oh, while we were elsewhere, Daryl Kruger stopped on track on lap 12. Web wet with Frank Radosti in P5 in AM. Michael Lock up to P6 as Brian Hall pits. Trackside view. This battle continues, neither giving up. Meanwhile, Gilles Lalonde pitting from P12. JT Tammy's pace is fading. Daniel Kirby is closing in, 0.6 seconds in the last 10 laps. James Bowders has ducked into the pits from P8. Tom Nazella has ducked into the pits from P10. Frank Radosti up to P8 as the pit stops cycle through. Daryl Kruger up to P9 with Tom Nazella back in the garage. Daniel Kirby is reeling in JT Tammy. On board with Norm Gruff. Losing a bit of pace now, Norm Gruff. Let's see that again. Returning to the battle for P3 in AM, Matthew Overton versus Norm Graf. Jules Lund rejoins from the pits, one on pit 24 seconds stationary. This battle continues, neither giving up. Pit stop for Carl Struhal, currently P6. Pit stop for JT Tammy, currently P2. Norm Graf's pace is fading. Matthew Overton is pulling away, gap up by 1.2 seconds. While we were elsewhere, Daryl Kruger stopped on track on lap 12. We're back with Norm Graf in P1 in a trackside view. The lap times are starting to drop off for Daniel Kirby. Norm Graf has now watching JT Tammy. Michael up to P3 with Matthew Overton back in the garage. Brian Hall up to P4 with Matthew Overton back in the garage. The leader, Daniel Kirby, has pitted. Let's look back at something we missed earlier. We're back with JT Tammy in P2 in PRO. P2 JT Tammy keeping it clean. The lap times are starting to drop off for JT Tammy. Now watching Norm Graf. The lap times are starting to drop off for Norm Graf. This battle continues, neither giving up. Norm Graf has cut the gap by 0.6 seconds. This battle continues, neither giving up. Daryl Kruger has ducked into the pits from P9. The lap times are starting to drop off for Norm Graf. Gap down to 0.6 seconds for Norm Graf. This battle continues, neither giving up. Norm Graf is closing in 0.6 seconds in the last 5 laps. This battle continues, neither giving up. Losing a bit of pace now, Norm Graf. Now watching Daniel Kirby. The lap times are starting to drop off for Daniel Kirby. The leader has a comfortable gap. Daniel Kirby leads by 5.1 seconds. Daniel Kirby is struggling to maintain the pace. Leader has a comfortable gap. On board with Norm Graf. Norm Graf has found some pace in the last few laps. Norm Graf now 24 laps done. Frank Radosti heading into pit lane. Norm Graf has been faster, closing in on Brian Hall. This battle continues, neither giving up. Quicker laps now from Norm Graf. Norm Graf is closing in 0.7 seconds in the last 10 laps. This battle continues, neither giving up. This battle continues, neither giving up. Norm Graf has found some pace in the last few laps. Ryan Hall extending the lead. The gap is coming down. On board with Brian Hall. Traffic cleared for Brian Hall. Norm Graf alongside Brian Hall. Brian Hall alongside Norm Graf. Norm Graf alongside Brian Hall. P5 Brian Hall keeping it clean. Matthew Overton has been faster, closing in on Brian Hall. Meanwhile, Michael Locke pitting from P3. Let's take another look at that. We're back with Brian Hall in P. On board with Daniel Kirby. The times are coming down for Daniel Kirby. Brian Hall heading into pit lane. Daniel Kirby leads by 4.1 seconds. Daryl Kruger has spun in AM. Let's see that again. We're back with Daniel Kirby in P1 in PRO. The leader has a comfortable gap. Let's look back at something we missed earlier. We're back with Daniel Kirby in P1 in trackside view. James Bowders heading into pit lane. Meanwhile, Tom Nazella pitting from P110. Frank Radosti up to P8 as the pit stops cycle through. On board with Brian Hall. Brian Hall clears the slower car. Daryl Kruger up to P9 as Tom Nazella pits. This battle continues, neither giving up. trackside view. Norm Graf's pace is fading. This battle continues, neither giving up. This battle continues, neither giving up. Matthew Overton has been faster, closing in on Norm Graf. The lap times are starting to drop off for Norm Graf. This battle continues, neither giving up. Norm Graf has spun in AM. Let's see that again. Returning to the battle for P4 in AM, Matthew Overton versus Norm Graf. Now watching Daniel Kirby. Remarkably consistent from Daniel Kirby. Matthew Overton heading into pit lane. Brian Hall up to P4 as the pit stops cycle through. Carl Struwell up to P5 as the pit stops cycle through. Norm Graf has ducked into the pits from P7. Look at this AM battle for P2. Losing a bit of pace now, Matthew Overton. Matthew Overton now 34 laps done. Pit stop for Carl Struwell, currently P5. JT Tummy has ducked into the pits from P2. Matthew Overton's pace is fading. This battle continues, neither giving up. Meanwhile, Gilles Lalonde pitting from P12. Daniel Kirby in from the lead for a pit stop. Here comes Matthew Overton on Norm Graf. Traffic cleared for Matthew Overton. Matthew Overton now 36 laps done. Matthew Overton's pace is fading. P5 Matthew Overton, keeping it clean. Pit stop for Norm Graf, currently P7. Trackside view. Impressive consistency from Daniel Kirby. The leader has a comfortable gap. The leader has a comfortable gap. The lap times are starting to drop off for Daniel Kirby. Darrell Kruger heading into pit lane. The leader has a comfortable gap. Frank Radosti heading into pit lane. Daniel Kirby's pace is fading. The leader has a comfortable gap. Now watching Matthew Overton. Quicker laps now from Matthew Overton. P5 Matthew Overton, keeping it clean. Matthew Overton now 41 laps done. Matthew Overton is getting into a rhythm now. Matthew Overton now 41 laps done. On board with Daniel Kirby. Quicker laps now from Daniel Kirby. Meanwhile, Brian Hall pitting from P4. Meanwhile, James Bowders pitting from P7. P1 Daniel Kirby, keeping it clean. The times are coming down for Daniel Kirby. trackside view. JT Tammy is getting into a rhythm now. Micah Lock heading into pit lane. JT Tammy now 46 laps done. Meanwhile, Tom Nacella pitting from P8. Quicker laps now from JT Tammy. Meanwhile, Matthew Overton pitting from P5. Now watching Daniel Kirby. Daniel Kirby is getting into a rhythm now. The leader has a comfortable gap. The leader has a comfortable gap. Daniel Kirby has found some pace in the last few laps. Darrell Kruger is in trouble in AM. Here's the replay. We're back with Daniel Kirby in P1 in PRO. The leader has a comfortable gap. While we were elsewhere, Darrell Kruger stopped on track on lap 45. We're back with Daniel Kirby in P1 in PRO. Daniel Kirby's pace is fading. On board with Micah Locke. Losing a bit of pace now, Micah Locke. Micah Locke now 48 laps done. Micah Locke now 48 laps done. Losing a bit of pace now, Micah Locke. Micah Locke now 48 laps done. Trackside view. Daniel Kirby leads by 2.1 seconds. Daniel Kirby leads by 2.2 seconds. Impressive consistency from Daniel Kirby. Now watching Karl Struhel. The times are coming down for Karl Struhel. Karl Struhel now 51 laps done. Now watching Daniel Kirby. Now watching JT Tammy. Watch JT Tammy behind Daniel Kirby closing fast. Now watching Daniel Kirby. Now watching James Bowders. Oh, action in AM for P1. Now watching Micah Locke. Quicker laps now from Micah Locke. Now watching Daniel Kirby. Now watching Carl Struhal. Carl Struhal has found some pace in the last few laps. On board, Daniel Kirby takes the PRO win. Carl Struhal is in trouble in AM. Here's the replay. We're back with James Bowders in P3 in AM. Trackside view. On board with Frank Ridosti. Runner-up in PRO, JT Tammy. While we were elsewhere, Carl Struhl stopped on track on lap 52. Runner-up in AM, Frank Ridosti. Micah Locke rounds out the PRO podium.
I think that's it. Yeah.
James Bowders.
So congratulations,
rounds out the
Daniel,
AM
JT,
podium.
and Mika have taken the top 3 in the pro. Really exciting race. And then Carl, Frank, and James picking up the top 3 in the AM. So well done, guys. Good race. Lots of action.
I threw it away, Matt.
I
mean,
know,
just-
but I was just pushing as hard as I could on you because I wanted to grab the extra points from the points finish, and then you just what, cooked it?
Well, I threw it away in that the what you call that the chicane thingy jingy.
Oh yeah, the hickory jiggery thing. Yeah,
And
I saw that.
I think I pitted one less time than everybody. I think.
Very possibly.
Yeah. How many times did you guys pit?
I
Twice.
was planning on 2, but had to do 3.
Yeah, I just did 2.
Great job,
Where-
Daniel.
Where'd you have your mixture at?
8.
4.
How in the hell do you do that?
Oh,
Lots of lifting.
Part of the race I was lifting, and yeah, I didn't touch the boost until the last lap. That's probably what caught me out, Matt.
Probably. Yeah, you're just a little surprised by the speed.
But hey,
Yep.
I won the AM.
Yes, you did, sir.
Good run, Carl.
Yeah,
Norm
thanks, guys.
lost it going over the top of that fast left right after the back straight. He lost over there and then clipped me. We both went into the wall, and then yeah, that's where my strategy went all to hell, and I lost my chance to catch up to Brian.
Who was
Thanks,
the-
Matt. It was fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
thanks,
was.
Matt. Who was the green and orange car?
I've got kind of green and yellow.
That's Tom. I think, yeah, Tom and Nacella is green and yellow, green and orange, or green and yellow. Yeah.
Did you rear end me in the pit?
I think a couple of times because your car was not showing up until I hit you.